Listen to me. God's people, get out before it gets hot. If you can't take the heat, you better get out of this kitchen right now, because I'm sick and tired of full-out war going on. God's people, bunch of filthy sodomite perverts, and if you don't like it, get out of here. Let me tell you something. I'm sick of it, and I'm not gonna back down, and I'm sick of people not backing me up on this, and you know what? You are insane. If you're not gonna back us up, let me tell you something. God's people, you are insane. I don't want to hang around with a bunch of fag hags. You are insane. And a bunch of queer baits and a bunch of effeminates. Get out! I don't love God. I read the Bible. I'm just a brainwashed fool. Let me tell you something. Can't think for myself. God's people, they're sodomites. They're dogs. That's what the Bible calls them. Dogs. God's people, dogs! I'm just a brainwashed fool. I'm sick of it.
High-ranked district, here he goes, crossing himself. Oh! He's done.
You know what? I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people not backing me up on this. God's people, you're a bunch of filthy sodomite dogs. Filthy, and I'm sick of it, and I'm not gonna back down on this. All right? I'm sick and tired of it. Gotta climb the goddamn furniture to make my point around here. Fuck! Are we live? We're live. People are watching. Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker podcast in moving, the transition podcast. This will be known as the transition era between studios. All right, folks. I don't know. What do we do? Oh yeah. You guys got to link up with the gang. You got to say hi to your neighbors. You got to get ready to catch a vibe because we got to start with our communion. Please raise your glasses and hold on to your asses. Through him, with him, in the unity of the flying man. All glory and honor is yours who flied for our sins forever and ever. You may drink. Alrighty, and we've got another new communion song for you guys. Let's see if the stream survives this. No promises. This one comes to us from Corey Wong and Dirty Loops. I think maybe you guys know the name of this song already. Maybe you've heard this before. Dank Slug was first. Hill Hugger, welcome. Hill Hugger was second. Appreciate you. 5,000 pocket change. You can redeem your points at the store. And YouTube was third. Time to get airplane mode, y'all. Catch a vibe, yo. Time to let go of the Monday blues. We got a little bit more weekend left in us, huh? We're gonna have to pretend it's a long weekend tonight. You're gonna have to forget you just got home from work. And while you at it, I'm gonna need you to forget that you gotta go to work tomorrow. Right now, it's about linking up with the gang. So good, so good. All right, gang, we got one more for you. So before we getting into it, we trying to catch a vibe, man. You got to make sure you caught it. That last one was fucking perfect. So you're in the vibe, but now you got to get one more so that you can catch what we call a deep vibe. You know what I mean?
Got a friend in me.
One more for you.
You got a friend in me.
Yeah, that shit's fire, partner.
When the road looks rough ahead in your miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said. But you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got troubles, well I got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you.
Hella tight. All right, gang, let's take off on this shit. So, the first thing we're going to get into is just, honestly, you know how it is. Cousin Jay was trying to do some Uncle Bobby shit. So, Cousin Jay saw some shit. So, now Cousin Jay's got to wax about some shit. All right. I was in the office today in Gather. Links in the goddamn description. Why are you not working in the virtual office with all the community as your friends, free to come and go as they please? Because your monkey ass isn't in Gather because you're being a YouTube loser. Now, back on story. We were in the office chilling, doing as I do, modding the latest Mythvision podcast because I happen to be a mod at Mythvision podcast. He happens to be a mod here. I know people get all excited. Derek. It's just one of my mods. We try to keep it lax. All right. I like to let him come through and enjoy himself. You know what I mean? Anyway, no, really, seriously though, he did a great interview with Dr. Cargill. I enjoyed the shit out of it. All right. There was a little bit of a section there right at the end where he started talking about sort of how this journey has influenced him in terms of, politics, maybe his social issues and stuff like that. And there's just some language that came up in one of the super chats later. And I was like, yeah, that's part of a longer conversation because I had noticed the same thing. And then I was like, well, when are we going to have this longer conversation? And so I was like, fuck it. Let's just play it on stream and react to it in real time. So look, first thing I want to say is I love the interview. Dr. Cargill seems like a fantabulous guy. And so yeah, let's hang the asterisks. Like, I just think there were some things that stuck out to me as just reflecting like a different perspective than I have or where I'm at, but certainly a perspective I think like I can relate to. Like I've seen a lot of people go through this journey, and it feels weird to me to even be at a place where these type of things jump out to me. But nevertheless, they do. And the comment kind of reassured me that other people were probably on the same tip. But yeah, I want to say again, Dr. Cargill seems like a fantastic dude. I'd love to sit down and talk with him because I have a lot of more questions. I know how it is when I see somebody on stream. I'm like, God damn it, I wish I was doing this interview so I could just get into my questions. I try to be a good interview, so try to have good questions for people. So he's somebody I would love to chat with, especially because he's a legit academic. He's a professor. He works at another big state school here in the Big Ten. So yeah, definitely. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons. But anyway, let's go ahead. I pulled up the last part. I'm gonna play from like, it's about 54 minutes in till they start doing the super chats or so. And yeah, we're just gonna talk about it. But I just want to state up front very clearly, it's really just about perspective. Seems like a great dude. I just heard some things that I'm interested to see if I'm on to something and if I would have a productive response to these type of things. All right, so let's jump in. Let's get into it. We're gonna Autobot transform. No, y'all can't do the. No, I got co-hosting privileges. I get to do the Uncle Bobby-isms live because I host fucking shows with Uncle Bobby. And we're gonna blow up Shoe8. I just can't help it. It's just like it's stuck in my brain now. It's just how my brain thinks. All right, gang.
I'm friends with that person.
Let's hear this roll
we were
of tape.
Friends when we were very young, and so I had a friend once tell me it's probably better to preserve our friendship if we just don't see each other on a regular basis. And I was mad about that at first, and I was like, no, that's probably right. And I just had to learn to let go. And once I let go of this conservative, fundamentalist upbringing of religion, I realized that I was a kinder person.
I was about to ask you.
less stressed. There was less anxiety. There was less fear. I wasn't always telling people what they needed to do. There was less of this, right?
All right. So that establishes our sort of reading frame for this exercise, right? Like, and that is what I mean about this being a matter of perspective. The language that comes to mind now is when you leave sort of fundamentalist, uber conservative type of background, you often end up in a place, because it feels so foreign to the way you were brought up, you're in a place that feels like very progressive to you, very totally different than that. But at the same time, the issue is that perspective is still kind of the reference point. And so I think for a lot of people, at least myself, because this is really what this is about, is like, because I related to this in my own journey. Like when I first started to leave the faith and first deconstructed, I wasn't, I just had a lot to learn, right? And I wasn't as radical as I thought I was. In fact, I still, had a lot of conservative ideology kind of baked into my identity a little bit more than I like to talk about now.
It was just, how can I help you? What do you need? How can I be an encouragement to you? How can I be a team player? How can I? Now, I was still a leader. I still have this skill set where I'm an educator and I'm a leader and I'm an entrepreneur and I still have this skill set. But it's how can I build something greater than myself, and how can I help those around me? How can I? I'm a father. It's not just because I have 5 kids. I transitioned into this role of, it's got to be bigger than me. How can I help you be a better person? And that's what I do with my students. And instead of telling my students what to believe, I walk into every single class. And I don't know if you have any of my students watching this now, but I start every class with, I make a promise to them. I will never, ever tell you what to believe, ever.
Boom. All right. Now, this is the first thing that jumped out to me. And again, gang, it's about perspective. And honestly, I had to just play it for y'all because I wanted you to hear it in context and hear him say it so you understand, like, this is just what I heard, right? And it's never hit me like this. But for the first time in my life, I was like, really? I was like, is that a good thing? Right? Because it feels to me like part of the script, right? It feels like part of, it almost feels like part of the politics of civility or something, right? Where we all know, right, it's really bad to tell people what to believe, right? And on the surface, I don't have a problem with it, right? And I certainly, I hope we can have a good faith conversation here, right? I'm not talking about forcing beliefs on anybody, anything like that. But I do like, I don't know. It just hit me like, actually, I think it probably is okay to be clear with people about like what you believe and maybe even what you think they should believe. I certainly think the other side does it, right? I do think there are sides to these type of issues because there's conflict, right? And, that's usually how we speak about conflict, right? And so, somebody trying to pursue secular human interest in society sees someone that might see themselves as a conservative evangelical or something like that. And they're actively going to spread their worldview, and they're definitely, if not outright telling people what they should believe, they're actually putting a ton of pressure on people, right? And it kind of sets the table in a way where then if I come along and just say something like, you know, I actually don't think you should believe Christianity. Like, that's just my honest opinion. I don't think you should. And I think when people tell you these type of stories and, you know, make these type of appeals to you, that you should not believe them. I don't know. Did any of you guys like lose your stomach? Like, is anybody like super put off? Any of you guys want to like, you know, if you want to unsubscribe to the channel, like, I guess that's cool, right? But like, you see what I'm saying? Like, is it really? And again, it's not him, y'all, right? We all say this shit. I've probably said this a gazillion times myself. Like, we all that's just part of how we have these conversations, right? We just go like, oh, I'm not going to tell you what to believe. Like, we all just say that, right? So it's cool. It's not, I can't stress this enough how much I'm not trying to make this personal, because there's just nothing personal to make of it. Like, he seemed like a really awesome dude telling a very reasonable story. I just heard some shit that made me reflect on, like, just struck out to me as like, I feel differently about things than I used to. I hear things and I have a different response to them than I used to, right? And so this was one of them. This was like the first thing that got me like I should say the first thing got me like paying attention to the conversation. It was a great conversation, but this just had me like, whoa. Like, I actually put a comment about this in the chat, and it literally took me like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or more to like actually send the comment, because I was like, should I send this? Like, could there be consequences for sending this? Like, or like jackasses down the road gonna be like, oh no, I was in a Mythvision stream and Jay was saying we should tell people what to believe and not to believe. And I'm like, oh, here we go with this shit. You know? But literally I was really thinking about it. Like, what, like, also, like, you know, I'm an evolutionary biologist like him. I'm a professor, like I'm an instructor. And I know certainly, like, I just think about it, like, I don't know, like, I would hope that my students believe, I think there's a certain amount of upfrontness that we are in my class. Like, I think we are trying to teach our students, for instance, about evolution, how it works, and we definitely want them to believe that shit and understand its power, right? And then part of our curriculum is like, oh, we're gonna talk about creationism, and we're gonna talk about how that's pseudoscience, and it's not scientific, and it's, quite frankly, it's illegal. But, you know, and if somebody sat me down and said, like, are you trying to tell your students what to believe in your class? I'd just say yes, because I wouldn't want to play the word games. And I'm like, is that really, like, I don't know, like, so it was just interesting. Like, again, I'm really not trying to make this personal, but I was really trying to just reflect as to, like, what does this type of rhetoric do for us? Like, who does this really help, right? Because it seems to help the status quo, because I think we're very well aware of the active indoctrination on the other side. I'm gonna just put it to you like that. And then if we then, you know, set up a sort of moray or whatever, where we're not really supposed to actively speak up against these beliefs, I think that's a big part of the problem. So yeah, I don't know. It just had me thinking, y'all, and this really got me thinking, and there was just some more stuff that got me thinking.
I will give you facts and data, and you get to decide for yourself what to believe. I will never try to convert you or deconvert you. I'm going to give you facts, and then you get to decide what you want to do with them. But if you ever need to talk to somebody about anything, please know that I've been there. I've probably been there, and you can come talk to me. I'm a big advocate for mental health. I've been through that anguish.
Yeah.
I've been through that. And so come talk to me.
Is it fair to say that there was a bit of judgmental mentality that comes along with that ideology, that worldview, that once you, like, you're so much more accepting of everyone, anyone, color, creed, race, gender, doesn't matter at all. There is a freedom that has come. It's like you're born again, honestly, in a different way.
To put it. You know, Derek, that's a good way to put it.
Really true.
by just letting go of, and first I would let go. I went from being a conservative fundamentalist Christian, dogmatic, apologist, to becoming a progressive Christian. I read my share of, Blue Light Jazz and Max Lucado, and I became this progressive guy. And then I realized that's also not sustainable to me, because now you're fighting battles on both sides. And
all right, now that also is a cue to me, and I think again this is true of myself, and it retraces my own growth, and maybe some of you guys as well, right? But notice how we go from being conservative Christians to progressive Christians, right? And that allows the framework as far as what is conservative and what is progressive to be defined while you're still under the umbrella of Christianity, right? And I think that's a cue to the problem for so many of us, right? And that's essentially what I think a lot of us, when we start to, get more in depth with secular progressive ideas, we start to realize, the sort of Overton window, or whatever the right phrase is, in terms of Christianity is so crazy far to the right that what counts as progressive within Christianity, not to say that it isn't genuinely progressively leaning, but it might not be the same as what counts as progressive outside of that. But it's very difficult to see that in your own journey, because again, you feel so like you've been born again as you have a radical departure from a more staunch kind of traditional ideology.
And so while I'm a left-leaning political, I'm a bull moose, by the way. If people are wondering, where is this guy politically now? I'm a bull moose progressive. It's a party that existed under Teddy Roosevelt, but that's kind of where I am politically, since I'm an independent.
All right, so this is another weird thing that jumped out to me, because I didn't recognize this term right away. I'm sure my high school civics teacher would be disappointed, so I had to refresh my memory or whatever we'll say. And it, I looked it up, and it's like it's like they were like a progressive wing of the Republican Party, ultimately seemed to fracture the Republican Party and hand that particular nomination, or that particular presidential election, to the Democrats. The bigger thing that jumped out to me when listening to this was the way that this is not helpful to making actual progress in our country. Like, I am horrifically dissatisfied with today's political parties. I don't want to make the stream about that, but I hope you guys genuinely accept that. But setting aside my personal feelings, the commentary that jumped out to me, and I heard this, was like, oh, this is this thing we do in conversations that's like not helpful. Like, it's not helpful to me to identify with political movements that, for lack of a better way to put it, like, aren't a thing anymore, right? So, like, and just let's think about how this plays out, right? In today's movement, let's say me and Dr. Cargill are at a, Big Ten fucking educational forum summit thing, and we're kicking it. Oh man, Derek Lambert from Mythvision, right? And we get to chatting, and he tells me he's a bull moose, and I'm like, cool, right? So then I look it up on my phone, just over casual conversation, and I go, so this is a progressive wing of the Republican Party. You see what I'm saying? Like, so now I've got him tagged for what, like a Republican? But I don't think he's telling us that he identifies with today's Republican Party, right? I think, in fact, he's telling us he doesn't, right? So then is he telling us that he identifies with today's Democratic Party? Well, he's not saying that. He actually said he's an independent. Well, do you mean independent like now independent, or independent like boom? Like, and again, I don't think he's saying anything malicious or whatever. Like, actually, it was quite encouraging, right? Because his specialty or his expertise is like something else. And so, like me, he's just, having a conversation with Derek and talking about how he is with the students and things like that. So he's just reflecting where he's at. But yeah, that just kind of jumped out to me, because you do hear this a lot. Like, it kind of reminds me of like when I first started, just as you're coming along listening to like apologetics and stuff, where there's all these philosophical terms, this whole language, and when you first hear these words, you're just like, what does that mean? Like, who is that like, right? But at least those are like current. Like, you're like, what the fuck is a precept, right? But then you can get introduced to precepts. There's a lot of precepts out there. So yeah, I don't know. That just jumped out as a thing that I thought was like, it would strike me as weird. And again, I just think like, I think from like a lot of what he said, like he seems like a super cool dude who's definitely down for the cause, to put it, for lack of a better way to put it. Like he's trying to, see the best for people and make the world a better place. And I think that's super commendable, right? So for me, because I feel the same, like, and that's what I expressed before, like I feel the same dissatisfaction with today's current parties, right? But this is the reality we have. We live in a world where pretty much you're either a Democrat or a Republican, or you're an also ran, right? And that's unfortunate, but it's kind of important to know where somebody's at a little bit more clearly in terms of the current political landscape. And that's why I find that type of identification like not particularly just from my perspective, like not as helpful as like, just making it clear that you're a progressive according to today's landscape, and you recognize the problems with today's conservatism, period, end of story, or whatever. It just seemed like to paint the middle deeply, like to not only like, is there like some both sidesing and stuff like that goes on here, but when you sort of also paint yourself as like having this weird, antiquated, independent political affiliation, it's just like, I guess it sells the independent package. So clearly he's done some thinking about it, right? But it just jumped out to me as a little odd.
But a left-leaning one. But
appreciate the left-leaning. I
realized that
and I definitely think he's being genuine.
Letting go of all of this stuff,
which is why I think he's worth having a conversation about.
Less judgmental. I don't have to always try to enforce, here's what you need to believe and here's what you need to. I'm not trying to defend policies I don't believe in anymore. If you're gay, great, good. I love you and I support you and I want you to be the best version of yourself. I really do. And by the way, that was shining through when I was still at Pepperdine. I had gay students at Pepperdine coming into my office because they knew that my office was a sanctuary. They knew that I wasn't going to condemn them. They just knew that. And it was one of the things that I could do there to just they just knew that even though the official policy there was, you can't do this. I don't know what it is now.
Right.
They knew that they could come talk to me about it and I wouldn't judge them. And when that became kind of my official stance on things, I want people to be the best versions of themselves. And I couldn't do that when my faith tradition was, you can't allow that because this ancient text says you can't do that.
Yeah. So this is really important here, because like I think this is like, and I wanted to make sure we got him telling the story in here, because I think like this is when somebody is trying to clearly signal that they do see themselves as progressive, that they, you know, are, I would say like this seems to be an attempt at allyship, right? And so I think like, again, he seems like a really cool dude, right? And that's why I think this is all about a journey, because a lot of us probably have this same development, right? Where, to me, you do start out, like I remember when I was in college, for instance, I was really serious, I thought at that time, about being an ally, but I still identified as a Christian. And so I would have been in pretty much the same position. Like, yeah, I'm a Christian, you know, I'm down to serve the church, but I want to make sure I'm a safe space for my, you know, queer friends, and I'm even willing to go as far as being a, you know, vocal supporter of theirs, right? It's just now, years later, I feel like, you know, the game is really about fighting for justice and equality for all. And now I'm at a point where it's difficult for me to be tolerant of conservative ideologies, because they are the source of the oppression. So it's not enough for me to say, oh, cool, you can come kick it in my office. It's not enough for me to say, you can come kick it in my office and I'll, you know, come to the gay rally. I gotta do something about the evil empire that's oppressing you, the same way I expect y'all to do something about the racist status quo that's oppressing me as a black person. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's a difference between, yeah. So that's it. And don't get me wrong, I think this dude is like totally against bigotry, and probably, and he is like, he is trying to tear it down. But like, that's just what I was hearing in the story, right? It's just the journey from safe space to like burn it all down.
I want to ask you, you became agnostic at UCLA, then you're at Iowa. Iowa sounds like an amazing college, by the way.
Wonderful.
I am so glad that you're happy, and especially when I was interviewing you and you were like, was it Go Hawks? What's their
Go Hawks? Yeah.
Go Hawks. You're like, Go Hawks. I mean, like, I could tell you got pride for Iowa. You titled yourself agnostic. You kind of didn't want to go out public about it, but then you did go public about that. Where do you put yourself today in terms of pigeonholing yourself, which really, at the end of the day, I have a little philosophy, and it's kind of like, we don't ultimately know, right? We don't have any ultimates, but we're doing the best we can with the data. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a freedom in not knowing. It's almost like wasn't it Socrates who says how little he knows, and he's the guy who like knows so much, at least. There's a freedom in not having all the answers,
right?
And learning to be okay with that. But where do you put yourself now? Are you still agnostic?
Yeah. So I understand that there are people who say that agnosticism is the weak way out, the cheap way out of atheism, and I hear all that. in the same way that I'm a political, I'm a moderate. I'm not, I don't like the far right as much as I don't like the far left, right?
Right.
I'm 60, 70% of this country is in the middle. And yeah, I'm more of a progressive moderate, but I believe that if we talk to each other, that's the only way we're going to move forward as a society.
All right. So this is stuff. And again, gang, I'm fucking new to school on so much of this. But I'm trying to work through it. All right. So it stung to hear the like, oh, I don't like the far right just as much as I don't like the far left, right? And again, it would just help if I had more clarity from him about like where he stood on certain things, because now I don't know what he thinks is the far right and far left, and I don't know what his sort of modern day electoral politics are, and that's fine. It's fine. Like he's under no obligation to be clear to me, but it seemed like he literally said he was making this effort. Oh, I know people are going to want to know where I'm at politically, or people are like, it almost like it's like, oh, I want to clear up my political stance, and now I'm just like, but I'm still very unclear, And again, that's cool. Like it's not a big deal. Like he doesn't owe me an explanation, and Derek doesn't owe him to try to get one, right? But it really did get me thinking about how we talk about things, because I would probably still say some shit like this, but now based on our current electoral politics, I know that I'm on the far left. And so, but what does that mean? And normally, like, y'all know, like that just means, to me, it just means like I'm a self-identified woke mob boss. like I'm just, but that feels like dog shit, y'all. What? I'm about equality for people. I'm about like marginalized groups no longer being marginalized. Like, gang, really? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I lean into it. Like, I'm like, fuck it. Y'all know me. Jay will fucking cancel you for fucking watching the wrong YouTube video. Sure, whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, I'll play the bad guy. Sweets and music, baby. This is not here to make friends. But no, seriously, I just really... That feels like such a low bar. It feels like such a low bar. It really does. It doesn't really feel that radical or that badass. I like most of the time, honestly, like when politics or like the real issues come up, like for instance in Gather, when we're having real conversations, they're very unfulfilling, y'all, right? Because when you get into anything meaningful, there's quickly nuance and gray area, and nobody knows, and it's hard. So we sort of take a lot of hard stances, but we take hard stances on what I feel to be easy issues. And so today, when you say I'm against the far right as much as I'm against the far left, it sounds like you're not down with the Nazis, but you maybe also are not down with I don't know, like because he like I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, what does he mean by far left? Because if you were to be like, I'm not down with some sort of like radical communist fucking whatever regime, I don't know. I start to sound like fuckface Frank Turk. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, what do you mean by that? But yeah, there's just, I don't know. I felt some kind of way about that. Why? I don't know why. I just really did, because I was like, this just, it made me feel like people who are just trying to get right about the basics of the human decency are thrown under the bus because we're the vocal, vociferous opponents of the fucking Nazis. And it makes it seem like it's only really cool if, you know, we play it in the margins, and we keep it, you know, sort of, you know, where where there's a big enough tent for people from both sides and both parties and all of this type of nonsense. And it just feels like it, I don't know, it felt very like not addressing the current political climate, not the ideal political climate, not how we would talk about these things, you know, in a room full of grown folks in a normal society, but the actual reality of American electoral politics in 2023, especially like he's a professor at like Iowa, like that's ground zero for Nazis on one side and quite frankly people like me on the other.
Whether that's about religion or politics or economics or whatever it is, we have to be able to sit down and talk to each other respectfully. You can't condemn people for what they want to say. It is, I don't
All
like.
Right. Now, this also grabbed me, right? Because yes, we can. We definitely can. We definitely can. And again, gang, I'm new to school on this, right? Because again, like he just sounds like me. Like I would just say all of this shit. I don't want to put this false narrative out there. Like I think I'm better than this. I'm just growing in real time in front of you, mostly due to the influence of the same people you've been listening to that have been helping you grow on how you think about shit. And you know, now I'm in a different place. I'm like, yeah, no, have you heard what people want to say to us? I definitely want to condemn people for the shit they want to say to me. Like I live in a world again, bro, where like all I got to do is grab my main man William Freeman and get him up in here, and he's gonna be like, Jay, I want to just to prove that I'm willing to spite you and I don't care about these silly ass rules. I want to call you a coon to your face 3 times. You know, I got people that nigger bomb me on YouTube. What is nigger bombing? No, like it's like they would jump into the StreamYard and like we'd be like, all right, you know, what do you want to talk about? And they would just like be real dodgy and real weird. And eventually we realized the conversation's going anywhere, so we try to excuse them. And then for the like nigger, like as we give them the boot, right? Or they would just type the word nigger repeatedly in the side chat, like, you know, like if you do StreamYard, how like there's like the comment section, like the live chat that you guys are engaged in, but there's also like a private chat for the people that are backstage, right? So the people that we would like remove from the stream, they would literally just type nigger in all caps a bunch of times before we booted them from the studio. Right, so I just need people to be clear now. You understand what I'm saying to you? Like this is what it's like now. Shit is really getting worse. So it feel we're gonna cover we're gonna respond to like a Jesse Gender stream on privilege and nonviolence. But when I think about these two things, that's kind of what I think the politics of civility is. It's like the intersection of privilege and nonviolence, but with regard to civil discourse. It's a very sort of, you know, sit down and debate your humanity in calm, humble tones. Now, why did I go there? Because there's definitely a huge exception to this, and that is in the classroom, right? Like, and part of that is, one, you know, students are learning. And so they're in a place of, you know, their personal history. Like, they're not bringing the same sort of vitriol to issues. Like, if they're misguided on something, then that's just the result of, you know, their background and what they've been exposed to. And we're here to expose them to different ideas. So there's a sort of special place in an educational setting. Also, students are, for the most part, genuinely trying to learn. Even a misguided student is typically under naive assumptions that the world just works the way they assume it does. They haven't sort of doubled down based on personal biases or rejected information and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just and that's what struck me about this, because I know he's kind of straddling both those worlds, but there is a huge difference, and I'm realizing it myself, and it's kind of difficult to deal with. Like, in my classroom, you have to have a much wider berth for what is acceptable, even though, ironically, you don't really deal with as much radical stuff because there's a culture of good intent. Like, you can't say some whacked out shit, because if you do, like, you know, your classmates are reading their homework and they're reading the same papers, and, you know, they're taking in the same information. So, you know, that's just there are repercussions for being wrong. Whereas when you're in the social sphere or the political sphere, or you're dealing with family and friends, it's a totally different environment.
Like cancel culture.
Right.
Now, I don't like idiots, right?
Now,
I don't
of course, that jumped out to me too, right? Because then he was like, I don't like cancel culture. And, you know, that's just a right-wing talking point. And here would be the test is, hopefully, he would also say this to the right-wingers, right? Because what bothers me is the cancel culture thing is thrown out. Typically, the subtext is it's a criticism of the left. When, again, it's the right-wingers who are boycotting Chick-fil-A for hiring a DEI director or vice president of DEI or whatever. It's the right-wingers who are boycotting and making all these fucking TikTok videos at Target because they have tuck-friendly bathing suits or whatever the fuck. You know, you know, it's the right wing that are trying to cancel any of the companies that are celebrating Pride Month and all of this shit. So what do you mean by cancel culture? Because when you don't say, after you kind of both sides, you don't like the radical right and the radical left, but we're not really still sure what you mean by that. After you tell us you're a bull hog or whatever bull moose that, you know, is, again, was a progressive right-wing thing from a bygone era. Hey, y'all feeling what I'm putting down here, y'all? It's just a lot of right. And again, like, why am I not like super like going off about it? Because honestly, he seems like a really genuine person. Like, it's just a perspective. Like, he's just on a journey. A lot of these things are regional, right? He's in a different part of the country, at a different type of institution. I come like this to work at the University of Minnesota. Shit different. You understand what I'm saying to you? You know, and, you know, he's got, you know, different sort of background, and I definitely think he's leaning left and moving left in a real meaningful way. He's just not And I think he would agree that he's not as out there to the left as I see myself now, but I think he wants to be. And I just heard some things that I felt like I could maybe talk to a person like him, because again, he seems like he's really committed to, you know, being good peoples, and just be like, some of this stuff is still not helpful. Right. And that would and I hate that you like can't even like that's where we're at. Like we should be able to, you know, pull each other aside and just like, hey man, you know, some of this isn't as helpful as it sounds, right? Because I know he's trying to be helpful. It's just with today's climate, we gotta be clear. And we may have to recognize a real need to change the MO up, right? Like it might not be all. It might not be about that. That was the other thing that this had me think about is, I don't like that narrative. There's been this criticism. I've been paying attention to what I feel is like more of the real progressive commentators, and one of the things I've been learning is how we tend to reinforce the main character syndrome of people on the right, because we insist that changing their minds is the thing that we should be after, which still makes it all about them, right? And that takes some time to get there. And that's why I'm not like angry, because there's nothing to be angry about. I think he's being genuine, and I don't think he's trying to help the conservatives. That's why I'm trying to point these things out, because it's like, I think he actually is like a progressive-minded, progressive-hearted person who's definitely fucking disgusted by what he experienced and sees on the right. And he's trying to figure out how to work against it, right? But there's a lot of that alt-right playbook wrapped up in this type of rhetoric. And so I think if somebody like better than me discussed it, just somebody who had like more experience, I think he'd see it. Like I don't think he'd balk too much about it. Most people who are moving left, we know we've got fucking work to do and growth, and we're mostly pretty happy when reasonable people think we're worth the time of day. But yeah, he seemed like a cool dude, but like this just kind of hit me as like, wait, because here's why, y'all. We have to be realistic. These people are not. There's a few reasons, but number one is these people are not that dumb. Like it presents the problem as though we've never thought about that. I mean, do you really not think? Appreciate it, Punk. Do you really not think that racists haven't heard a reasonable argument that, you know, black people are just people and should be treated equally because they're also people? Do you really think that anti-LGBTQ bigots, you know, haven't been explained to the difference between sex and gender, and, you know, all of the, you know, great scientific evidence we have to support, you know, these other orientations or identities? Like, it suggests the problem isn't a thing we've tried since the beginning and been doing all along. A thing that bothers me also a little bit personal, and I'm getting a little bit in my feels here because I I do take a side on this unapologetically. It doesn't acknowledge the difference in the effort. You know, it's like if you have a relationship, and one partner for fucking a couple of decades has been holding it together, you know, trying to make compromises, trying to go to therapy, trying to work things out, you know, trying to accommodate the other person's needs, and the other person's just not giving them they're not giving them shit, just treating them fucking terribly, just treating them miserably the whole time. And then finally they say, fuck it, I'm done with this, I'm out. This is fucking ridiculous. Can't believe I can't believe I really wasted 20 years thinking you were gonna fucking come around with it. I'm fucking done with this shit, right? And then all of a sudden they go, oh, baby, please, don't go. Oh no, we can work it out. I want to listen. I'm here to listen. Let's talk this out, right? And then somebody, it's like commentating on a situation and go, well, he's trying to work it out now. So don't y'all need to, you gotta sit down and hear each other. You know, like, you're gonna be like, no, fuck that shit. I tried, fuck that shit. Fuck that. And the other thing is they're not good faith actors. So they're determined not to listen. So you gotta be realistic about that. You can't suggest that let's sit down and talk it out when you know that there are participants who are just committed to sitting through the goddamn conversation, not really listening and going on about their goddamn business. No, we have to move on in spite of them. This is about power. We got to organize. We have to take care of each other. We have to beat them at the polls, essentially. We have to find ways to think about what we're going to do economically to support the right type of businesses and support the right type of policies that move towards more equitable structures. Like we have to recognize that maybe conversation isn't the solution, right? And again, that's no shade. It literally is no shade because all of us want this, right? Like let's be real. All of us want to solve the world's problems by sitting down with the people we don't agree with, having a great fucking conversation over a slice of pizza, having them realize, oh my God, you're just so reasonable. I can't believe this whole time I've been a fucking idiot. You're right. I should stop being racist. Women are equal to men. I should absolutely support that in every single way. And LGBTQ hatred is fucking bullshit. I can't believe that all it took was us sitting down, having this reasonable conversation over a slice of pepperoni, and now I am totally woke and I'm ready to just be part of the solution. Again, I'm not saying people don't change. I've changed. Many of you have changed. But changing you should not be the goal of the social movements, especially not vis-a-vis marginalized people, right? Like, my concern as a Black person is the empowerment of Black people, us getting equitable treatment, us not dying for being Black. Convincing white people to like stop being racist is not my responsibility. And it's the same way like across the board. What am I hearing? Oh, there's birds outside because the window is open. All right.
Like people who just, there are some things that just need to be done away with. But for most people, we need to be able to listen to one another and be able to work things out, be able to, we used to be able to do that in Congress. We need to be able to do that in religion. We need to be able to do that in the classroom.
And again, like okay, so a couple of things, like, who is supposed to work that out? Right? Like, so we used to be able to do that in Congress. Well, why can't we do this in Congress anymore? Again, we have insurrectionists in our Congress. We have a GOP that literally just damn near made us default on our debts just to show that they were gonna obstruct. I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, I don't know. Like when I heard like some things just need to be done away with, I was like, yeah, like religion, like conservative ideology. So this is just, I don't know.
Should be these spaces where you can talk about anything, and that's what I try to do in a classroom. Is I call it a sandbox. The student should be able to ask questions and discuss things without being punished or penalized in a classroom for even raising the issue. So what I do a lot is I say, let me ask the question for you so that none of you get in trouble for asking it. Right. And I'll ask the question, and then I'll answer it. And a lot of times I'll say, by the way, I was always afraid to ask this question, but let me bring it up. Lena. And you'll be surprised at how effective that is, because then they'll come in, they'll send me an email, or they'll come into my office and they'll say, I'm terrified of asking my parents that question or asking my pastor that question. Most of the students who take my class are Christian kids who are asking these same questions. And what I just finally decided one day, it's one of the reasons I've decided to do this interview with you, is I wanted to give them an example of a professor who was willing to say, look, I've been there. I lived this. You are my people, right? These are my people, right? I have had these feelings. I was raised in a similar way. And there is a way through. You don't get out of it. It's not like a prison. That there is a way through, and there's a way through without being angry or without being afraid or without telling people off. The way through is to be kind and to ask questions and to seek answers from people who are willing to talk to you about it.
All right, and this is where shit gets like nuanced and complicated, because on one level, I feel him. Gang, I am a product of Penn State, Michigan State, and now the University of Minnesota. You're talking, for the most part, heartland institutions. You're talking about agricultural schools. You're talking about majority white campuses with predominantly white institutions with predominantly Christian student bodies. So I get that. Like, and this is the same thing about my students as far as their background, the students that were involved in, the ministry, like when I played at church, that's like they were all that way. And so you do have to be relatable, and in a sense you have to understand where they're coming from so that you can, have enough rapport with them that you're an effective educator. And also you have to just be cognizant of the demographics of your institution, because if not, then you're just not going to be a successful professor. At the same time, there's still a problem if you represent, if you reinforce like bad conversational habits, like if you get them talking in ways that are going to get them to just not understand why the framing of some of these things is so problematic. And you hear when you say things like, these are my people, like that's like, like that's a, you know, you want to be careful when saying stuff like this and implying that I don't know. It's let me pull this back.
And way through without being angry or without being afraid or without telling people off. The way through is to be kind and to ask questions and to seek answers from people who are willing to talk to you about it.
Right. So they're Christians. And when you're dealing with that Christian framework, this is like reinforcing that sort of cult narrative, right? This is establishing that basically the Christian tactic, the conservative way of doing things is the effective way. And that's not that's problematic because again, they're gonna just play the politics of village. All I got to do is show up, have the conversation, and be polite. Cool. Now I'm gonna just go forget everything you said and go back to voting against your human rights. Also, I'm not sure if that's true. Right? Like for me, I'm dealing with a lot of anger because there is so much backlash for stepping outside of the Christian framework, for not aligning with the conservative ideology. I'm not sure that you do reconcile that without a great deal of anger. And so in a sense, if I wasn't in such a place of self-assurance in my need to work through my pain and anger, this is the type of thinking that for a long time made me feel like there was something wrong with me for being pissed off about all of this shit. And made me feel always so guilty, like anytime I lost my temper or raised my voice or used adult language. And again, I think Cargill's trying to be a radically like on board dude, and he's trying to be righteous in his own way. So I'm just pointing out how I'm hearing it now. I really, because I don't want to respond to him as though he's being malicious, because I just don't. I didn't get that from him at all.
And I wanted to be one of those professors, like Don Larson before me, who was willing to say, let's chat. I'm happy to. I won't get mad at you. What do you want to know? And I'll talk to you about it, and I'll answer the question, and I'll do so with as much honesty and sincerity as I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer.
Right.
But I don't mind sharing my own personal life with him. A lot of people aren't comfortable with doing this, and that's fine. A lot of people just aren't as open as I am. But I'm happy to share this stuff because I've experienced it, and I want to give people, I don't know, hope. There is a way through. And if you are wrestling, if you are struggling with the way that you were raised or with what you believe, and yet you have questions, there is a way through. There is a way to.
I love this.
It gets
this
better.
Is true.
I don't want to steal anything from any other movement, but it does get better. There is a way to say, I don't believe this anymore. And I know it's going to cause me problems with my family, and it's going to cause me problems with some of my friends, and I might lose my job, but there is a liberation on the other side. And there are a community of people, some people you don't even realize who are in your community. They're just afraid to talk about it too, but they will come and they will talk to you and they will help you.
All right. So this is crazy because to me, this highlights this tension of the moment that we're at, where you feel a need to borrow from the language of the queer community because they've been so oppressed, they've been so marginalized. And borrow that language. It does get better. But at the same time, it's like it gets better by confronting and dealing with the problem. And that conservative ideology is the problem. And I think he totally recognizes that, right? But it's just that was like weird. So that's what like told me that like I think he's like working through it. But yeah, this is the point that I think drives home for me, that as atheists, we're still not seeing ourselves in the pot. We're seeing Black people are in the pot because of racism. The queer community is in the pot because of, bigotry against them. Women are in the pot because of misogyny. Poor people are in the pot because there's a class war. But atheists are really not seeing ourselves in that pot, even though you see him walking himself through it. Like, I know I may lose my family. I know I may lose friends. I know I may get fired from my job. Well, bro, that's marginalization. That's oppression. And there comes a time when you've got to realize the other side is committed to that. That's why that happens, right? It happens because they're not willing to just sit down and just talk about it. They're not, oh, you're an atheist now, let's sit down, have a cup of coffee. Oh, it was great, I enjoyed the pizza. I'll see you later. Thanks for telling me you're an atheist. We're good to go, right? They're going, maybe we should, oh, you're an atheist now? Yeah, maybe we shouldn't see each other now that you're not an atheist, now that you're not a Christian. Maybe you shouldn't work here now that you're not a Christian. Or at least some people know you've certainly cut off whatever upward mobility you may have had in this company. Potentially losing your partner, losing family members, losing more friends. I mean, I remember even like I was watching one of Derek's stream, and his mom left him a like "God loves you" type of note. I'm like, it's kind of super passive aggressive, actually. But we just live in this culture where we can't call that, and so that's the problem to me, is that that's not real, because sitting down and just talking it out with them is not doesn't do anything. It really doesn't.
So I'll tell you this. I love everything you've said. Just before I pivot to the thing that you were just saying there, I just want to point out your philosophy as an agnostic is similar to the tribalism we see within politics, or the tribalism we see within us versus them, atheist versus theist type mentalities. Even if you might on a certain day go, well, I don't think there probably is a God. I don't know. I can't be certain that there isn't something, all that kind of stuff. On the note that you just said, I think it's very sad that we're in that kind of situation where our children or our loved ones, our spouse, our friends, our partners, or whatever have to suffer. And so, like, the reason I've been having these conversations, not only with lay people that aren't experts in the field, but also with the top upper echelon of academics, such as yourself in the field, is to show we need to normalize this.
Yeah.
If you want to have faith, go for it. And I'm not out here telling you you can't. I don't want to do that. But in society, I don't see it systematic where if someone becomes a believer, they're now being condemned, ostracized, and whatnot. Now, I'm not saying that wasn't the case in Russia. Atheist Russia was like that.
Right.
They would have condemned you for believing. We need to prevent that condemnation, that kind of dogmatism from ever arising. And I think we're doing justice one piece at a time by having someone like you come onto a platform like this, publicly speaking out and saying, I love everyone, even the ones who couldn't love me anymore because I made this choice.
Yeah.
I loved them, and I still do to this day. But we need to normalize this and not make it systematic where if you don't believe, you are the black sheep of society.
All right, gang, this is gonna hurt, but do we love them? Do they love us? This is hard because, again, I just, gang, I try to really have meaningful conversations here. I just think this is part of the way the cult ideology is wrapped up into how we relate to others. And again, I don't have a interpersonal problem with it. Like, somebody says stuff like this to me, I don't think they're a bad person. But when I analyze the situation we're in from a social perspective, I'm going, I don't know how that gets us out of here, right? Like, I don't, like, let's say that the purpose of this is to change the game, whatever that means, like, or, change the cultural milieu, whatever, right? To make life fucking better, right? I don't know how the love thy enemy thing does that. Now, the hard part is, the truth is, where I'm at right now, gang, it means I don't know if I love my family. It means I don't know if they love me. If I'm being honest, the answer is probably not. I don't really think they love me. I don't think I love them. There's certain people in my family. I'm not talking about my whole family. No, obviously not talking about OG Roddy. I love that. Love him. I'm talking about my dad. But there's other people in my family. It's just I don't think so. I think the way their ideology, their Christianity makes them relate to the world is inherently abusive. And so I have to say, based on the behavior, that it's not love. I have to say, based on the lack of affection I feel towards them and the lack of a desire to really be in relationship with them and the lack of desire to have them in my life, I don't think that's really love. So it's tough. And maybe I'm soldiering differently than other people, right? Maybe other people are genuinely feeling love in spite of all of these differences. But I'm not, right? And if anybody else isn't, I'm hearing you. You know what I mean? Because when I heard it, I was like, no, it's not what's happening in a lot of these situations. But again, we could be different.
This is where we have higher mental health issues. There are people who are in LGBTQ communities that are committing suicide, and they want to just say, oh, they're just mentally ill from the beginning. That's the kind of systematic nonsense that goes out there, rather than the social ostracizing of these people is causing this. So
appreciate you guys.
We need to make it normal. We need more groups and communities that are speaking out, that are making this normal. And that's kind of what my goal is. I think we have the same shared ethic on this and our same goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, my goal is not to make everybody an agnostic. Most of my colleagues, to be sure, are still confessional Christians, Jews, Muslims, that are academics, that are critical scholars, that are teaching in some of the best universities around the country. But what you don't hear from them, they don't lead with it, is their religious side. You don't know if they go to church or if they go to synagogue, or it's just, they're scholars. What I interface with them on a scholarly side, and so you read their publications, you hear about them presenting at conferences. You know, if you get to know them very personally, you might know that they go to church, but it never comes up on a research side because they're never taking off their academic hat and putting on their theologian hat. That's not, it doesn't matter, right? So it is absolutely possible to be a confessional scholar and to be an excellent critical scholar. It's absolutely possible. But for me,
all right, so this is right. And so Derek just has everybody on. I would love to see Cargill and Miller talk about this, because for me, I don't know how you could do that honestly, and I do think it's such a problem because you're doing so much compartmentalization that you're almost like a double agent at that point.
Looking at the origins of religions, looking at the text of the Bible, it just, I no longer wanted to reconcile this. I no longer believed that was the case. And so I let it go and I became an agnostic. Now, do I believe that there's a deity out there? I never say no. There might be. And that's why I don't say I'm an atheist. There might be something else. I don't know. So maybe there is. Probably not. I think that when we die, and that's the end of us, which makes sacrifice, which makes this life so much more important, so much more valuable. I think we live on through our legacy and through our children and through what we leave behind, which is why it's important to live a righteous life, which is why it's important to do good. I think
he is an atheist. He's just have a good family. He's just using coded language.
I think there's what we would call theology. I think there's a philosophical rationale for living a good life. This whole notion of how could you be ethical if there's no...
I think he's an Iowa atheist, y'all. he's what I'm calling an Iowa atheist, baby. You know, he's just at one of them states, one of them institutions. You can only be so atheist, you know.
That's nonsense. That's of course there's rationale for living an ethical life if there's no God, or if there's people do it every day, right?
Look at Buddhists. They're literally philosophical atheists, and often not all, but yeah, look at how moral. There's people from different philosophies are doing very good things on a daily basis, and it is.
I agree. It's important to live a righteous life. It's important to do good for others, if for no other reason, just a purely utilitarian reason, so that they're good to you. Call that karma, whatever you want. It's just, you want to live a good life so that your kids have the best possible shot at a good life. I think this is part of the process. Speak ill of you when you're gone. And if they're speaking ill of you now, and they're going to speak ill of you because you left a faith, that's not the people you care about anyway, right? It's
Bob, I think that any student who ever took your class is privileged, and it's got to be a great honor to have been taught by you and to learn from you. I'm really
I would love to. I hope Derek does a course today. I hope Derek does an MVP.
There's so much more I'd love to dive into you, and we need to cover your books in the future episodes. We do have some Q&A, super chats, if that's okay. We'll get.
All right, so I wanted to stop it there. This was a very good interview that Derek did, and I enjoyed it. It got me thinking, and I want to say this, like, because in case Derek's listening or Robert sees this, like, I feel like I was being a fucking machete, right? Like, I feel like he was a very reasonable dude who gave us a real genuine reflection of his personal journey. I highly recommend you guys watch the entire video. There should be a Mythvision link down in the description. There is. Good. Oh, damn it. I don't think there is. All right. Go to Mythvision podcast. Most of y'all are fucking subscribers. But yeah, I definitely think that what I was doing was just listening to what he was saying and identifying little bits that just felt like we were had a slightly like a different perspective and used different language. And I don't know like how much of that is just different background, different regions, different institutions, or temporal, where maybe we're at a different place in a similar journey, and over time, he'll come to a place that sounds more like where I'm at now, or over time I'll come to a place that sounds more like where he's at now. But yeah, it definitely felt very different, right? This wasn't like fucking responding to an apologist or fucking the type of thing we normally do. This just felt like I heard some stuff. I'm trying to grow in my own ability to talk about these issues. And I felt like I needed the practice to say, like, is there really something to what I'm hearing? And am I able to articulate it without, being too rude or being unfair or mischaracterizing what he's saying? Mostly it just felt like he really is progressive leaning. He's just in a place where he identifies with neutral ground, which I feel is a result of one, all this probably feeling still very new. Two, when you come out of the cult and you come out of the crazy indoctrination, you kind of have a natural aversion to identifying too strongly with any particular group or set of ideas, right? There's an aversion to center your identity on anything, and so you kind of avoid identifying with very much. So I felt a little bit of that. Also, he still genuinely identifies as, the type of person his students can relate to. And I think, that you do still, you feel like you're hearing both sides clearly. Like you understand, like you just left the conservative movement. You understand, how those people see the world and what they're thinking. At the same time, you're more progressive yourself, so you're hearing those arguments a little bit better. So it genuinely feels like you must be somewhere in the middle. And he probably is, right? But I would just say, like, for me, it felt like he has a progressive heart, and some of the ways that you end up kind of both sidesing things feel like they're not helpful to progressive causes, and talking about stuff like cancel culture and some of that is just feels a bit reactionary, like it feels like a reasonably easy criticism to concede as a problem with the left, right? But then you pair that with, well, you don't want to, the hardcore left's just as problematic as the hardcore right. They're both unsustainable type of deal. It just, it's stuff we hear all the time, right? So it was just interesting. It was interesting to hear, but it's cool because, like I said, I think he was just being honest about where he was at. So I thought that was and overall the story super cool. I didn't want to cover it and respond to most of it because I don't want to like rebroadcast Mythvision stuff. I do it once in a while. Derek is super cool about it. I normally do it if it's a special occasion or something really grabs me. Derek's always super awesome about it, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, I definitely think you guys should go watch that entire broadcast on Mythvision's channel. It was really great. I just wanted to respond to that section about it. All right, y'all. I am fucking geeked about the main event. So let's get into the main event of the evening. My man Cam sent this over to me, and apparently Dennis Prager made a video about why black men should go to church. And so Rationality Rules made a video responding to that. So y'all know how it is. We're about to make a response to the review of the response of the whatever. Y'all know it's fucking the YouTube fucking Inception shit. All right. But you know what, gang? Like, I don't shit on it anymore as an art because there really is something to it. I've learned this now because I've been out here a little bit more to have a little bit of an opportunity to be in these different places. And so I can tell you, like, it's totally different, say, when you're making a video or you're doing an interview with somebody. That's totally one type of experience, and they're very different in their own way, right? But then there's another thing when you're reviewing something, like when someone's reviewing something. Again, it's all about perspective, right? The content is different because the perspective is different. So when someone's reviewing something, it's like they have kind of like a bird's eye view, or, they can be a fly on the wall. And so then they're going to bring a different level of analysis to the situation because they're responding to the original content. And then, believe it or not, there's even something to like a lot of times what we do, which is like the second or third level regurgitation where you're responding to a response. Because again, you just get to bring something different to it, or it'll lead you to a different meta-analysis because you're actually responding to a response. I don't know. I kind of thought I'd get sick of it, but as much as I like to do other things, I kind of value it. So we keep it going. All right. But let me just start off by saying, Prager, you go fuck yourself. Black people need to stop going to church, and we need to start off the top with the simple reality of hashtag Black people deserve the truth. Gang, just let that soak and seep into your soul, whatever. Black people deserve the truth. I said black people deserve the truth. And church is sitting on some bullshit. So no, black people should not go to fucking church. And I just feel like I'm about to get a real anger boner here because I think Dennis Prager is problematic, to say the very least. And it really is a huge problem to me that the majority white supremacy, Christianity, capitalist fucking bundle finds black people, black Christianity so useful, even though the whole system is built on racism. Like, racism is the base of the fucking soup. Racism is the fucking broth. Racism is the fucking cream. Racism is also most of the protein and the fucking vegetables and all the other shit in the soup. But there is some other shit in soup as well. Okay. But it's really problematic. And we need to have a conversation about it, and that conversation basically needs to be white people realizing it's pretty fucking racist for us to insist that black people believe some bullshit and to only accept the upward mobility of black people if they play into our fucking clearly white supremacist fairy tales. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. But on top of that, what we have here with Dennis Prager is not that. See, that's on one side. In the middle here is kind of you shut the fuck up and you don't say shit about it. That would be a lot better than being way over here. But Dennis Prager's way over here in La La Land, where not only is he gonna fix his fucking monkey ass to open his mouth and discuss. Can you guys tell that I got an Uncle Bobby thumbnail in front of me as I'm looking over here? Because it just makes me talk like Uncle Bobby even more. All right, so, but now he's really going to do the gaslight. Right now, he's going to really tell us that actually we should be dancing for butter biscuits. Actually, he's going to be telling us that it's great for us to practice the master's religion. And then I got Rationality Rules, who like I love, and I'm sure I'm gonna agree with pretty much everything he says, but I'm like, I can't let these two white boys be out here talking about some black men need to go to church. So let me get my black ass up in the conversation and talk about this shit. But gang, let's roll the tape.
This is the New York Times, 2018. Black men who attended religious services are 76% more likely to attain at least middle-class status than those who did not. Wow.
Stop, pause the tape, and I'm like, fucking end the tape. Like, I'm already done. Look. This is what happens when you live in a fucking Christian supremacist capitalist fucking society. They literally only let the ones who go to church on Sunday morning, take Christian names and all of this other bullshit, have any upward mobility. It's just fucking dog shit. Racism, Dennis. The reason it's called racism. Just roll the tape.
Oh boy, where do we start with this one, huh?
We should just end. We shouldn't even start.
Yes, Dennis, your error here is indeed enormous.
Gang,
recently, we reviewed Dennis Prager's Master's program, and while we dealt with the bulk of his...
Pause the tape, pause. I'm already fucking triggered. I'm really sitting here with a Dennis Prager video about fucking black... Gang, I don't have enough anything in my system. Okay, the rest of this alcohol... down the hatch. Definitely not drunk enough for this. Definitely about to take another big ass rip. All right. Sam, where's my dog? Sam, here. You need to be right here. Yeah, I need a drink, a shot, and a goddamn emotional support animal to get through this fucking Dennis Prager bullshit.
Claims, you won't be surprised to hear that there's still an enormous number of errors that we had to omit.
Enormous.
But we always knew that from time to time, every once in a while, we'd have to return to the campus of alternative facts to deal with these errors, and today is one such time. During Dennis's segment on the insignificance of religion, he claims that adherence to religious beliefs is associated with enhanced...
Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it, man. That was a great episode, man. Man, there's seriously got, like, I don't know, we don't get a lot of gems, y'all. Like, we don't get a lot of, like, that's why I like Nitty shit so much. Like, hearing deconversion stories, people telling us exactly what the fuck was going on, exactly where they're at now. I don't know. I enjoy it. We need more of that. It's time to stop being a Christian.
Social support, less substance abuse, and lower rates of psychopathology.
That's all. That's all religion gives you. Let's review that.
Yeah, we're going to set up a new
enhanced social support,
at the new place.
less substance abuse, and lower rates of psychopathology. That's pretty powerful.
And then, with all the smugness you've just seen, Dennis accuses everyone who lives a secular life to be irrational. Indeed, he accuses us of rejecting religion based on emotional anger and brainwashing.
If after listening to these reasons, you still think it's a great idea to lead a secular life, there has to be a reason. It can't be that you have rationally concluded that. There must be some emotional anger or hostility to religion.
Okay. This is when the shit goes too far. And I have this awareness that even though I'm a black man, I have lived, pretty much white adjacent life my whole life. I was the only black kid in all white schools growing up, and then, went to and have been employed by predominantly white institutions since. And there's a certain amount of, like, you learn to just deal with a lot of shit, right? Because sometimes a lot of, like, insensitivity or whatever just comes from a culture that doesn't know any better or something like that. But what this here reminds me of is when that white shit just gets so good to white people that they really just think, man, this shit is so good, man. Everybody wants to hear this shit. And this is the type of shit that you would want to, like, I would want to tell Dennis Prager if I was one of his 0.000.3 black friends, like, bro, this some shit that play with white people that you don't don't bring that to the cookout. Yeah, you might not want to roll up in whatever the fuck Dennis Prager drives in his little fucking suit or whatever, and tell black atheists that there's no way that could be rational, there's no way that could be logical, and then literally kick some stats about the better economic fortune of black Christians. Like, boy, you just should have. Maybe y'all should have focus group that one. I don't know. Can't y'all afford focus groups and shit up there in PragerU?
Or that you've been successfully brainwashed into believing that you are above religion. You don't need it. You do.
Bro, you white as Casper, the unfriendly fucking ghost up in this bitch, telling black men they better not think. You better not think you're above this Lord and Master. You better not think you don't need my Lord. You may think you escaped the plantation of Jesus, but Negro, when I tell you the Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is coming for your black ass, what? Bro, what? Bro, he has no self-awareness at all.
Yes, I know, I didn't have to play the full clip for you, but
please,
I hope you understand that I didn't want to be
did.
the only one experiencing emotional anger at witnessing an old man nodding along to his own nonsense.
This is awful.
Now, we dealt with Dennis's shoddy academic approach in our episode titled Are Atheists Unhappy? We even exposed him for stitching together multiple studies to fit his narrative, but we thought we'd come back to address the one claim that we missed in that episode. Before that, though, I'd like to thank our sponsor.
Capitalism, we're not talking about capitalism. What we're talking about instead is black people deserve the truth, gang. That's what you need to be concerned about. Black people deserve the truth. Religion is not true, aka black people need to stop going to church. He is really sitting up in here talking about black men are not above white Jesus. They are not going to be able to escape the judgment and wrath of white Jesus. They may think they've gotten off the plantation, but the divine plantation has no bounds. Listen, I try to keep it simple, y'all. And the simple truth is freedom and the terms Lord and Master don't go together. Free people don't call anyone Lord or Master. This is why it is so ridiculous. This is why I say biblical slavery debates are at least racially insensitive. They're at least racially insensitive because you're literally having a conversation about whether or not the Bible endorses slavery in front of people whose ancestors were enslaved based on the Bible. Then you are gaslighting us because this book, which contains a bunch of books, one of them books is a fucking manual. It is an actual manual on slavery. It has regulations. It has who could be a slave, eligibility requirements, right? Amends, how to resolve legal disputes over slavery. All of that shit is in the Bible. And then fuckface Jesus comes along and still says slaves should obey their masters. It is at least racially insensitive. And this Dennis Prager shit is just, look, who cares? It's just go for it. Let's just go for it. Let's just tell black people they need Jesus. Like this is, it's like he literally is making me feel like this is what my ancestors went through. This is awful, gang. This is fucking awful.
Buying Surfshark VPN since they offer a 30-day.
Why is he still doing capitalism? He tricked
me as we unlock a world of nonsense with Dennis.
This is the New York Times, 2018. Black men who attended religious services are 76% more likely to attain at least middle-class status than those who did not. Wow. 76%.
How much more likely are they to already be middle class, you dipshit?
More likely to rise socioeconomically, which generally is associated with some increase in happiness. That's enormous. If people were not brainwashed into thinking religion is awful and is for dummies,
how is this not the gospel of prosperity?
Religion would be the first thing every single pro-human, anti-depression group would advocate. It is the single best answer.
Alrighty. Let's begin by getting all the pieces on the table.
Please.
The ground floor is a study conducted by the American Enterprise Institute, AEI, titled Black Men Making It in America. The second layer is an opinion piece by David Brooks for the New York Times, titled The Quiet Death of Racial Progress.
All of this is just problem. All of this assumes that the best thing for black people is to assimilate and become upwardly mobile in a fucking white supremacist capitalist system, right? Like and let me be clear. It might be the way it is, right? Like money is necessary to solve most problems in the world. If you have a friend that tells you that, like, you know, they're having trouble with food, or they're having trouble getting their medication, or they're having trouble, I don't know, like keeping the heat on in the middle of the winter, right? Send them money. Like send them money. Like don't be a fucking idiot. Literally just send them money. Like don't be dumb. Send them money and ask other people to send them money, right? So it might be the case that upward economic mobility is necessary, to get your slice of the pie or whatever, right? But it's super problematic to like insist that we accept your religion because that is what will lead to our upward mobility in your society, right? It's comply or die at that point, right? So like it may be necessary. So like, I don't know, like give us scholarships and don't be racist, right? But at the same time, to like actually make it the message of propaganda, right? Like there's a huge difference there. And that's kind of what's offensive about this, because we really should be working towards creating a system where you don't have to do it the white man's way to, not starve or be destitute in America. And Dennis Prager just has no awareness of how problematic it is that he's doing this. It's weird, but I kind of want to treat Dennis Prager like, who were we reviewing the other day? Biblically, or blessed be he, or praise I am, where the only is like, is he a troll? Like, is he trolling us?
And the third layer is Dennis.
You don't need it.
No, we don't need you, Dennis, but we do have you, and we're going to have to deal with you. So let's take Dennis's assertion and see whether his sources back him up. First off, note that Dennis is making a very substantial claim here. He presents this information in the context of arguing why we should attend church or a synagogue, and he's clearly arguing that the reason black men have risen socioeconomically is because of their adherence to religious beliefs. Put otherwise, according to Dennis, adherence to religion is the cause.
It's pretty powerful.
But does the opinion piece that Dennis references actually support his claim of religious adherence being the cause? The answer is no. Shock, horror, I know, unbelievable. The opinion piece merely presents the statistic of black men who attended religious services being 76% more likely to attain middle-class status. Nowhere does the author explicitly state that religious adherence is the cause of the socio-economic rise. Nor does the author say that attendance is the cause. So, unlike Dennis, the author doesn't commit a false cause fallacy. On both accounts, Dennis's source doesn't support him. In fact, the author actually spends a decent amount of time considering the actual underlying causes. For example, within the same paragraph that Dennis quotes, the author states, "Conservatives are right to point out the importance of bourgeois norms. That is, the cultural and behavioural expectations associated with and approved by those with money," which, in the United States, has been and still is the military, marriage, and church. Or to give another instance of the author contradicting Dennis's narrative, let's scroll up by just one paragraph. The author states, "Left-wingers have it correct when they point to systems of oppression that pervade society. The legacy of residential segregation, the racist attitudes in the workplace that demonstrably make it much harder for African American men to get jobs, the prejudices in the schools, in the streets, and in the judicial system that make it much more likely that African American males will be punished, incarcerated, and marginalized." Hence, far from the one-dimensional view of religious adherence being the cause of black men reaching middle-class status, the author paints a complicated picture of systemic proportion, emphasizing the legacy of segregation and the influence and preferences of those with money, which includes, of course, immensely rich religious institutions. Before moving on, let's approach this from an analogous angle. Study after study after study reveals that the more educated and intelligent someone is, the less likely they are to be religious.
Religion is awful. and is for dummies.
Now, if we were to indulge in Dennis's modus operandi, then we'd look at these statistics, be amazed, and then claim that if people weren't brainwashed into thinking that religion is good for them, then leaving religion would be the first thing that every single pro-education and anti-dumb group would advocate.
It is the single...
Yeah, but also, like, yeah, I mean, nothing, I don't disagree with anything he said. It just, we just have to remember what the ask is here. It is comply with my religion, because if you do, I will let you get your slice of the pie. Complying with my religion is the way to get your seat at the table. This is just fucking subjugation of black people. And the problem that also I want you guys to be really clear on is that this messaging is, in my opinion, one of the most destructive within the black community, because it makes some black people treat black people who are not black Christians, who don't dress a certain way, who don't talk a certain way, who aren't in church on Sunday morning, they look down on them. You know, they treat them like they're better than they are. And it's super toxic. And I've just experienced it in my own family. And it just bothers me that people like Dennis Prager don't give a fuck what the effect of their bullshit messages are on our community. And this is what I mean about Christianity. Like, they're just bad people. Like, they don't. It's just so hard for me to get over or to accept the idea that Christians care so little about the truth. So for somebody like Dennis Prager with a lot of money and a big platform to be out here, you know, dangling a golden carrot in front of black people. Hey, come to Jesus. That's the, you know, God will take care of you. You know, that gospel of prosperity bullshit. But have no regard for how toxic Christianity is within the black community, and just how awful it is that we can't move past it. What happens when an unarmed black man is shot in this country? What happens when the president needs votes from the black community? God damn it, what happens when the medical professionals need to get black people to take the vaccines and shit? They go to the church. And this is why it's so fucking hard to be a black atheist. Because the church is the center of social acceptability. And so you feel stuck. But you know, between a rock and a hard place. On one side, you can live a lie and spend the rest of your life playing make-believe with this Christian nonsense, or you can strike out on your own and, you know, live your truth. But guess what? You just cut off most of your prospects for romantic partners. You're going to be ostracized by your family and friends. You're going to have a hard time in the workplace. You could potentially have a hard time with housing. I mean, atheists are second-class citizens, and black atheists are, second-class citizens within, an already oppressed and marginalized group. And that's why it's infuriating to hear Dennis Prager talk about why black men need to go to church. What a fucking asshole.
Best answer.
To go further with this analogy, there is an element of correlation in both cases. Just as, when in a religious country, attending religious services increases one's opportunities and support network, which in turn likely leads to an increase in socio-economic standing, attending higher education increases one's ability to recognize and critically examine religious issues, which in turn likely leads to an increase in deconversion. There is, indeed, a correlation, but just as it's obviously a mistake to draw a cause and effect relationship between education and religious disbelief, it's likewise an obvious mistake to draw a cause and effect relationship between attending religious services and socio-economic status. Being educated doesn't cause you to become non-religious. No, it simply equips you with the means to become non-religious. Likewise, adhering or attending a church doesn't cause you to rise socio-economically. No, in countries in which religion dominates, attending religious services grants you opportunities that allow you to rise socio-economically. Alright, so Dennis commits a false cause fallacy, but what about the opinion piece? Does the report from AEI support the author's claim? Well, if we look at the page the opinion piece links to, it states, black men who frequently attended church services at a young age are also more likely to reach the middle class or higher when they are in their 50s. 53% of those men who attended church as young men made it, compared to 43% who did not. And they further clarify this observation in their report. Black men who regularly attended religious services at a young age were 76% more likely than those who did not to attain at least middle-class status 35 years later. So while the author of the opinion piece claims that black men who attended religious services are 76% more likely to attain at least middle-class status than those who did not, the report they reference makes clear that this applies specifically to black men who are now in their 50s. What's more, it's crucial to acknowledge that the report highlights the significant societal changes that have occurred in the United States over the past century, which have directly influenced the opportunities available to black individuals. I mean, let's not forget that just over half a century ago, the US enforced a system of racial segregation. The changes that have occurred since then have not, of course, removed the systemic problems. Far from it, but they have, at least in places, reduced the barriers. The report emphasizes, for example, that while in 1960 just 38% of black men were in the middle class or higher, as of 2016 it's 57%. This is still way below white men, but it's certainly a significant improvement. Couple this with the facts that we spoke about in our series, such as that those who attend religious services tend to be more socially active than those who don't, that those who share the same religious or irreligious views as their parents, whatever they might be, report greater mental health, and that the associations discussed are not replicated in secular societies, then Dennis's low-resolution perspective utterly falls apart. Prescribing recommendations for black individuals today based on a very different society that existed 35 years ago is incredibly misguided. The landscape has evolved, and it is essential to take into account the progress made, as well as the persistent barriers that still exist. And I'd argue that the selected words that Dennis...
But he doesn't give a shit. And just like his values are taken from a segregated time racially, he would accept a segregated society based on religion. He would accept a world in which, a black Christian, oh yeah, you can give them housing. Oh, a black atheist, yeah, no, it's understandable. Nobody wants the heathen in their goddamn neighborhood, right? Dennis Prager is a propaganda artist. There's no other way to see it, and he has. Again, I can't believe I actually have to say these words, but just in case anybody's unclear about my perspective here, Dennis Prager is not concerned about the well-being of black people. Can we just get that on record, can we all agree that that's what's going on here? That Dennis Prager is just a Christian propaganda artist and literally has zero concern for the economic well-being of black people? None at all.
References from the opinion piece fails to convey this context. But man, this is a full-fledged documentary he made, complete with bells and whistles. You'd like to think that Dennis would at least read the study, or at least the abstract, or at least the opinion piece, or at least the paragraph above what he quotes. But no.
That's all.
Yeah, we know that's all, Dennis. That's all we get when a zealot twists facts. We're used to it by now, but it still sucks. Now, one of the reasons I think this error from Dennis has been worth tackling is because when one oversimplifies a complex issue, they strip away the depth required to address the issue effectively. Real-world problems rarely have straightforward solutions that can be neatly attributed to a single factor, like religion in this case. By reducing the complexity to a single cause, people like Dennis create a distorted and incomplete picture that fails to capture the multitude of factors at play, and that's not just foolish, but dangerous. Dennis's one-dimensional take oversimplifies the challenges that black people face in the United States, ignoring the systemic factors that contribute to racial disparities. By solely attributing the higher likelihood of black men attaining middle-class status to religious adherence, he overlooks the multitude of social, economic, and historical factors that impact the lives of black individuals. This narrow perspective undermines efforts to address systemic racism and inequality. It fails to recognize the structural barriers and discrimination that many black individuals experience, such as unequal access to quality education, employment opportunities, and equitable treatment within institutions. You know, just like the opinion piece and report say.
If people were not brainwashed into thinking religion...
And that's a big part of the problem, because he's also not acknowledging that Christianity inhibits our ability to do those things. Christianity in black people, just like in white people, will inhibit their likelihood of pursuing a STEM education or careers in science and things like that. It will reduce the likelihood of them, you know, pursuing medical intervention when they have a health problem. It'll increase their likelihood of making irrational life decisions based on what Jesus told them to do, right? It will reduce the likelihood that they fight for sound economic policies or self-governance. You know, these are the fucking side effects of making black people believe bullshit. Hashtag black people deserve the truth. And so you should not be insisting that people go to church and join your fucking cult until you can demonstrate that your God is real and that your particular version of Christianity actually is the correct one, and on down the list of things you know that they can't demonstrate. But man, it just bothers me. Like I hate the idea of so many black people being Christians. It bothers me to my core. I don't even know why he made this fucking video. Honestly, so many black people are Christians. It's so, you feel like such an outcast as a black person in America when you're not a Christian. I literally, like, who is this video for? Who, like, what? Like, is he somehow suggesting black men aren't Christian enough? Like, is he disappointed that it isn't literally 100% of us? Is that the only thing he'd accept? Because literally, like, way too many black people are already Christians. Like, Christianity is already, so I literally don't even know who this is for, but it's god awful.
Is awful and is for dummies. Religion would be the first thing every single pro-human, anti-depression group would advocate.
And if people were not brainwashed into thinking that Dennis is intelligent, terminating their subscription to PragerU and the Daily Wire is the first thing they'd advocate. No, wait, it's not. They subscribe for confirmation bias. He's just fine. He has no... That's the problem. He has no capitalistic incentive to not say stupid things. Anyhow, that will do it for today. Thank you kindly for the view.
And I'm sure he would just insist it was true, but notice how that's not part of his argument. And this is the thing that, like, Christians never notice. They never notice how their side never makes a good argument. Like, you literally think black men should believe that Jesus died and rose again for their sins and give 10% of their money to the fucking church and show up every Sunday, because that's the key to upward mobility. Please notice how that's a fucking non sequitur. Like, I mean, it's just bad. It's just bad. Dennis Prager, please shut the fuck up. Please don't ever suggest that you have the solution to black people's problems. Please just don't even ever talk about black people ever again. Oh my goodness, that was awful. Awful, just unbearable. Literally listening to Dennis fucking Prager talk about what black people need. And gang, you know Dennis Prager is of Jewish descent, who is just a self-hating person who has become a Christian propaganda artist. I'm done. I'm done. I can't. I just can't. That was too much. That was too much. And I'm sorry to all of the Candy Owens and the whatever her name is, all the black people that work at PragerU, y'all are coons. I'm sorry. Look, I was gonna get some Amala. Her name is Amala, Candy O, whatever that dude, that one, you know, they got that token black guy, whatever his name is. All of y'all are coons. I mean, just there's no excuse for that. Nope. Your black card has officially been revoked. None of you are allowed to the cookout. None of you. Not a single one. Speaking of cookout, gang, I am going to go in together and cook some dinner and eat some foods because I'm very, very hungry. I'm so glad to see all of you here. Some of y'all are just late. You're just late. I don't know what to tell you, but it's still good to see you. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I'm still moving. I need to pack the next couple of days, but we'll try to get some more streams in here. Moving out on Friday. I did find a place, so that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's not going to be homeless, so that's great. I'm not going to be homeless, but I am going to be broke, so you have to take the good with the bad, man. Oh my goodness. What is this? Black people. Yeah, exactly. This is pretty much the same deal, man. And why don't he just tell us that, right? Like, hey, black people, look, if you would just stop being black, you know, I don't know if you guys, black people, I don't know if you heard, but you know, your average family income would be 10 times higher if you were just a white family. So just Michael Jackson it. I don't know. Like, just, you know, isn't that available, everybody? You know, can't you just go down to the local corner store or the bodega and get the Michael Jackson in the number 2, you know? Don't take the Michael Jackson in the number 2. All right, gang, love you guys. Let me get the fuck up out of here. Come hang out and gather. We'll see you soon. Thanks.